I'm Fry.
And I'm Claire.
And this is our 1986 Volkswagen Vanagon Sue. Come take a look inside. First area, this is kind of like my little kitchen. I have this 1924 crab pot boiler. I got this back home in Indiana at like a little antique store that I love going to. And I decided to put that on top of just this like pallet made or, you know, recycled material cabinet. So in here I just keep like water bottles, food, propane, pots, more coffee. You know, I try to do a lot of like canned stuff so that whenever I'm out in the woods, if I like can't get any food, because I kind of like pride myself on hunting and trying to get my own food, which is why I built this whole thing. And I just kind of keep all my little spices, some flowers that we pick up, coffee, tobacco, necessary things. And over here we have wood stove that came from a company in England that worked with another company in Canada. And they sent this thing over and it's so good. It's all cast iron and it burns super well. I kind of have to make like a little custom flue for it, but it's super nice because if you wake up, you get it going, get it hot, you can just throw your bacon right on top of it and watch it drip off the sides, and it's quite the experience. And I keep a cast iron with me all the time, you know, a little fan in my cameras, and you know, I'm always ready to take photos, and I love shooting film, so having like little places for cameras and just like other little trinkets is super important, especially when you're, you know, in such a small space. You need to be able to personalize it, especially if you're gonna live in here and just make it your own. So up in the front, I keep a Nomadic CFX fridge, and it just runs off solar. It's super efficient. I can use it as a freezer or I can use it as a fridge. It honestly does a really insane job at not using a ton of solar, but also just like making sure that we can carry like decent, healthy food with us. Or when I'm out in the woods hunting, I can just like kill something, throw it straight in the fridge, and I don't have to worry about it, which is super nice. And the fact that it has no outside input other than the solar is absolutely killer.
We met here at Descend, so we met years and years ago, and then we were just friends on and off, and we both really love the Tetons, so that's like a really special place for us. I worked there for summers, and
I did some cattle work there.
Yeah, so we met up there 2 summers ago, and then we just started hanging out after that, and we've had a really good time so far.
Oh yeah, so. Yeah. We're trying to start a cattle ranch, and I was in the van for like 6 or 7 years or so, and then we met, kind of got a house, and we were in there for a little bit of time, and then tried to start the cattle ranch. Things didn't, you know, necessarily feel right at the time, so we moved, and we're trying to figure that out. We kind of just hit this point where it's like, you know, things can get so overwhelming, and we just decided we wanted to jump back into the van. We both have like many a years van lifing. Yeah, between the two of us, I think we have 14 years.
We have a lot.
13, 14 years. This was the first piece of cabinetry that went into here, and me and a buddy built this, put it in here, and it was like the first sense of like thinking of this thing as like a full-blown home. Once again, just little trinkets and plants, just because they make things look nice. They make you feel like you're getting some fresh air, which you are if you're in the mountains. You know, squirrel hide from Montana that I shot and ate. This is kind of like my club with my boys, the old Germans, you know, because we're all in German vehicles. And then what I did with the sink was, you know, like if I ran out of water, you know, just for like whatever reason, it's a dry sink or a wet sink, so you can pull this out of here if you remove the stuff that's next to it, take your dishes to the water or wherever. You know, just a little pipe faucet, electric pump, which also runs off of the solar. So I've got 320 watts of solar. I have one 160 watt panel and a 175 watt panel. But since they're hooked in parallel, they're both only 160. And then I have a 20 amp MTTP charge controller, a 1000-watt inverter, and I've got a 100 amp hour AGM battery, which I think is honestly the demise of this entire thing. I think that if I could go lithium, and I'm gonna do that here pretty soon, I definitely want to, because you can drain that battery all the way. You know, this battery, you only get 50% of the use. The only thing that kind of keeps this alive is the amount of solar on the roof. But you know, it's perfect for running everything. Like, it run the fridge off of it, run a water pump, inverter, which runs a lot of the lights. There's a diesel heater in here, which is a 5 kilowatt. It stinks to kind of carry multiple sources of fuel all the time, but that's why you have multiple ways to do things. You've got the diesel heater, but you've also got the wood stove, which in my opinion is way better than the diesel heater. Just depends on like your fire season. Just like, you know, throw stuff up here and try to make it as homey as possible. Like, these are some antlers that I've got, and I just kind of use this as a mug holder. So inside of the squirrel cabinet, it's just like plates, dishes, soaps, cups, you know, bottom of the sink, foils, bear spray, everything you could kind of think of. So this bed actually, since it's a weekender Vanagon, actually went the full width of the van, and a buddy and I that also, you know, built the cabinet, we decided that it just made more sense to cut the bed down, and we cut the brackets, like just did a couple of things, and it's super squirrely, super finagly, but you know, then the bed comes out to here, to the back of the van. It's nothing special, it's just like stock material. We at one point reupholstered this seat and just used like the original foam, so it's not the most comfortable by any means, but it's a spot to sleep and it's warm. You can put blankets on it, so it's kind of what it is. The aesthetic of the van, kind of like the all-around style of it, really just comes from like me feeling I think it's like a supernatural feeling. When I say natural, like this need to just get out into the woods and be able to utilize your skills for like surviving. Like, I really thrive off of just the thought of surviving. Like, when things get really complicated and I've got to like do all this, you got to pay that, you got to, you know, do this, take this car to there, you know, whatever. That type of stuff really stresses me out. And I just find that I'm like myself and my best self when I'm able to just like drive out into the woods, go to a spot, park there, have my little cabin on wheels, and like just focus on surviving. I've always wanted my own cabin, and at the time when I was 17, I was like just thinking about how hard it would be for me to buy my own cabin in like Montana or Wyoming. And so I met a guy in a Volkswagen, and I was like, well, why don't I just build a cabin that I can move around wherever I want to go? And that's kind of how this happened. So
everything that he set up is like very, very intentional, and he puts a lot of time into that, and I just really like that about being in here with him. It's like his universe in here, and everything has purpose. The living in a tiny space together, it's really fun. We both are like intentional with our time, and if I want to go on like a walk or something, I go walking. And I think you just have to keep it healthy and have boundaries with one another and just be super open, and if you need time to yourself, go take that time and just have a good time. You know, that's what it's about. Doing fun stuff.
You know, kind of to start, we just like keep plants up here and boot oil, because I love oiling my boots, especially like out here. You know, this is like an antler that a friend gave me, and I just kind of use that to like hold stuff back. I don't generally keep a whiskey bottle up here, but it looks pretty good. And then over here, I've got more plants and some old cans that I found. I like keeping these grafted cactuses. They just look really cool, and they're really hard to kill. I have killed a couple of them, but you know, definitely one of the longest living plants that I've ever had, for sure. And then up here is a thermometer that I just kind of keep in here. so that when the wood stove is going, I have some sort of an idea what the temperature is. It's just really interesting to look at it when you wake up and it's like 20 degrees, and then you get the stove going and it goes up to like 90 degrees, and you would think 90 degrees is like absolutely insane, but when it's 20 degrees out, 90 degrees is wonderful. So yeah, it's just like, a little bit more of like the trinket style stuff. And then we have like a window that, you can open up as far as you want to. You kind of got to use a little stick to hold it. Obviously close them when you're driving down the road, but they just kind of give it that like cabiny feel. And I'm like just at the right height where I can like, peer out of them. I know that if I had to like sleep somewhere that I generally wouldn't sleep, like some suburbia or something, which I don't love doing. I hate cities, but I can like keep these curtains open, not worry about anybody looking in. So then up in the front, I've got a large storage cabinet. It just holds backpacking stuff, kind of everything like recreationally that we do. And it's an insane amount of space. For the longest time, for like 5 years or so, I just keep a chainsaw in there and like fill that puppy full of firewood. That way I wouldn't have to worry about it. I could like put enough wood in there to last the whole winter. And then I just was back home in Indiana hunting and squirrel hunting. And I got this like insanely large red squirrel, which is kind of like our most common squirrel in our wooded areas. And so I don't like to waste anything, so I just skinned him up, of course ate him, salted the hide, and then tacked him up there. And he's been up there for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And I mean, it's still holding strong. And I also, love to keep a little hook up here, just so if anything gets wet, if we, go out and do something like snowboard or, just like out in the snow, trotting around, foraging for stuff, I need to hang things up to dry. It's just kind of like the perfect spot. Like, nothing will actually touch the wood stove, but it gets all the heat as the heat rises and the water drips down onto the stove, which the stove just like eats and doesn't really care. And in like 30 minutes you'll have dry clothes. So it's like really nice. I've thought about relocating that hook maybe a little lower, but honestly I just like it how it is. I like everything how it is. I don't really love to change stuff in here. The things that we do to sustain a living in a van, on my part, we kind of have two different parts, but doing like commercial photography, helping out some brands along the way, getting their products and stuff involved in what's going on in the van, and really trying to get across people's products in real life use. Obviously, I kind of have like a niche of 1883 cabin, so do a lot of photography. And then I also manage ranches. We're in the process of starting our own ranch. I'll manage cattle ranches along the way. I've done the worst job, which is just like, being a horse stall cleaner. And I've also been a ranch foreman, been a wrangler where I take people on like dude string rides. I've been a horseback hunting guide, so we take people miles out into national forest or on private ranches, take them out hunting, stuff like that. But really my favorite at this point is managing ranches and us starting our own and seeing where that goes.
So for me, when I was traveling, I did seasonal jobs. So there's places online where you can find different seasonal jobs, and you can go to national parks and work there for a season and just have a really good time adventuring in that area and trying new things. And that's honestly kind of what got me into this lifestyle, is the national parks and just seeing these really beautiful places and putting yourself in the way of just like wonderful things. So I did seasonal work and some photography work. So, yeah.
Here we have the Hightop. I built this along with some friends that really gave me a big hand on it. Honestly, at first I was a little sketched out. I was like, when we were like, just framing it up, I was like, man, maybe we should just like put the pop top back on it. but it was too late because I sold the pop top. So what we used was like 1x4 framing, and of course framed out all the windows, you know, cut things to kind of the curvature of the van in the front, tried to match that angle as best as we could. And so it's made out of the 1x4s. There's 1/8" plywood, Tyvek, and then 1/8" cedar tongue and groove. Cedar is super great for this because it's like a very rot resistant wood. So it just made sense to kind of utilize it everywhere. Plus it takes up like a decent amount of space, like the board width. And then we put a galvanized roof on it, like tin roof. Honestly, it has leaked before, like when I didn't seal around the roof fan, but now it's completely solid after I sealed around the roof fan. But then right here we've got the wood stovepipe, and this is actually like, it just got redone. Stovepipe has to be replaced like every 3 or 4 years, just because it's in so many different conditions all the time. There's water on it, there's, you know, rain going into it, there's heat coming out of it, which just tends to create rust. You know, it does good. I've never really worried about it catching on fire. I did put like a little piece of aluminum around it to kind of insulate the wood from the stovepipe, and it works out really well. So with the solar on top, I needed to have a way to like easily access them, so we kind of built in like the Rocky Mountain Westie ladder, and it's super nice. I don't even have to pull it out to climb it. I just climb it as it is. And then as far as the van itself goes, I do have a 2-inch lift on it. The weight kind of bogs her down, but then I've got a full set of General Grabber ATXs. Insanely good tire. They're snow rated. I don't really have to like worry about too much with them. I don't even carry tire chains, and I'm like constantly driving through snowy areas. So on the front and rear, I have Go SD steel plate bumpers. They're either 1/8" or 1/4" steel. So the front one is just like kind of as is, and then the rear I've mounted a swing away system on. So if I like need to work on like chainsaw or like small motor, anything like that, I can set it on like one of the trays and, you know, just like do anything that I need to. Plus it's super nice to like get the spare tire out from under the van, just have it right on the back. It just makes life in a van way easier. Honestly, if you were like scared to do this, I think that kind of in my own story, I was 17 when I got this van. I didn't know anybody. I had a job at the time, but I was like living out of a Land Cruiser, like an old FJ60. And I really just wanted to experience the mountains. I didn't really just want to go for a hike. I wanted to live out there. And so I think what it took was just understanding that it might be scary, and it definitely is, especially if you're new to it, but taking the leap is better than not taking the leap at all. Like, sure, you might fall, but things will always work out, and you always find a way to get through things. You think that like you're broke down, you're at the end of the road, this is it, I only have so much money in my account, this or that, and then some random stranger comes along and he's like, hey, I actually you know, I have that part, or I've got your motor or that transmission, and come over to my shop and I'll put it in for you. And then, I mean, that's that. It's just, there's always a way. And if you're scared to do it, it's probably the right time to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in a mindset where they're really comfortable where they are, and they feel like this lifestyle is a super uncomfortable lifestyle sometimes. But I think if you take your rig and you make it your own, then it's an extremely wonderful experience, and you just kind of have to go with it. And you might not shower for weeks at a time, or you might break down somewhere really inconvenient, but you always find a way, or you meet someone really wonderful and they help you, and it's just a really great way. And
the best advice I think that I could absolutely give to anybody in this, you know, lifestyle, keep it simple. Like, simple is better, in my opinion. Like, when you start to overcomplicate things, you overwhelm yourself, and then this just no longer becomes a fun experience. You have to look at the life that you want to live, and then imagine yourself doing that, and then build it or drive to it, you know.
And you don't have to have like the perfect rig. You can make it your own, and it doesn't have to be super perfect. So I think that's the best thing about it is everything falls into place and it's just really wonderful.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah. If you want to follow along with our journey, you can follow me at Fries Van on Instagram. It's FRYESVAN. And then we also have Fries Cattle Company, which is like a up and coming project. But you know, on the Fries Van account, it's like all the photography, stories of traveling, stories of hunting, just kind of everything that you could think of.
Yeah, and if you want to follow me, I'm Clare Lawler and Clare Lawler Photography. I do wedding photography, elopements, portraits, couples, everything you could think of.
Thanks for coming to see our home, and if you want to find us, you're gonna have to go and get lost in the woods.
Thanks.